The Catholic Church and science have had a tumultuous history, as the Church is generally afraid of science and persecutes anyone who challenges the Bible with science. It did so with Hypatia, Giordano Bruno, and of course, Galileo. Or so the story goes. There's just one problem. These stories are myths. While there have definitely been conflicts between individual scientists and the Church over the years, with some of them experiencing harsh punishment for their work, the idea that the Church has ever had anything wrong with science in itself is completely false. What actually happened with these three, and what can we say about the Church and science today? This is Catholicism in Focus. We begin with Hypatia, a 5th century woman known for her work as a Neoplatonist philosopher, astronomer, and mathematician. Although not the first female professor in Alexandria, she is the earliest for which we have any reasonably well-kept records of her life. It's no wonder, then, why modern people have held her up, not only as a scientist, but as a strong feminist icon. It's no wonder, then, why her unjust, brutal death would be remembered so many years later. As the story goes, she was attacked by a mob of Christians incited by Cyril, the bishop of Alexandria, because of her philosophical teachings against Christianity. She was torn limb from limb, scraped to the bone, and then burned. As a martyr for philosophy, the last of the Hellenes, a symbol of Catholic oppression of free thinking. At least, these were the things that were attributed to her in the 19th century, 1400 years after her death. The reality is that she was never perceived as a martyr in her own time because her death had nothing to do with science or religion. Although a pagan and a philosopher, there appears to be no conflict between her teaching in Alexandria and Christians prior to this moment. She was well regarded for her tolerance towards Christians and even taught them in her school. There was also nothing fundamentally problematic about her branch of philosophy. Neoplatonism was actually the preferable branch of philosophy at the time for Christians, taken up by key figures like Origen, Pseudo-Dionysius, and most notably, Augustine of Hippo. When you're a pagan on the side of Augustine, the Church is probably going to like you. The problem, and what ultimately led to a mob violently ending her life, was her politics. Historians say that she was well connected in the political world and often found herself in leagues with ambitious and ruthless men. This would ultimately lead to her demise when she crossed paths with Cyril. Although eventually canonized a saint, he lived a very flawed, very violent life fraught with controversies. He used force against the Jews in retaliation for persecution, fought nasty theological battles against the heretic Nestorius, and engaged in a violent feud against the prefect Orestes, who represented the moderate camp of Christians. According to the Neoplatonist historian Damascus, this is what led to Hypatia's demise, as she was Orestes' close friend. Cyril invited a mob against her, and she was brutally killed. Meaning that her death had nothing to do with science. She was not persecuted for any of her scientific beliefs. She died because her politics conflicted with a violent man. Was this man a bishop? Yes. Is this good for the Church? Absolutely not. But it doesn't provide a drop of evidence that there is a conflict between Church and science. It just shows that some of the people who led the Church did some bad things. In her time, she was not seen as a martyr for science or as someone in conflict with the Church at large. This did not appear until the 18th or 19th centuries, when her story was revived as a powerful symbol of an anti-Catholic scientific movement. The same can be said about Giordano Bruno, the Dominican friar and priest, often regarded as the first martyr for science. Born in 1548, he was ordained a priest at the age of 24 and spent a number of years studying, wandering Europe, and publishing works. He was interested not only in science, but in mathematics, philosophy, poetry, and theories regarding the cosmos. He was among the first to defend the then controversial Copernican model of the universe and wrote about his belief in the plurality of the worlds. In 1593, his beliefs caught the attention of the Roman Inquisition and he was arrested. After convicted and trial in 1600, he was burnt to the stake as a heretic. A man supporting a scientific principle we know to be true today, killed by the Church. Obviously, this is a problem. Except his support of heliocentrism was hardly his biggest concern. Bruno was also a major advocate against the virgin birth, denied transubstantiation, questioned the miracles of Jesus, supported pantheism, and even possibly believed in reincarnation and the Hermetic occultism. That is quite the rap sheet for a priest. Although his support of heliocentrism and the plurality of worlds were mentioned at his trial and certainly played a part in why he was initially questioned, they were by no means the primary reason he was convicted. He was condemned for his long list of heretical theological beliefs. It can certainly be argued that the Church used excessive force in punishing heretics, a topic for another video, but there is simply no argument that Bruno was condemned for being a scientist. But what about Galileo, the granddaddy of them all, you ask? This was not a priest with unorthodox beliefs. He didn't get wrapped up in politics with the wrong people. He was just a scientist who was condemned, jailed, and tortured for boldly contradicting the Bible. Right? Yes, but mostly no. Galileo's story is by far the most complicated. For one thing, the image of Galileo heroically standing up to the church in defense of science is just untrue. At no point did he publicly reject church teaching, nor did he categorically defend heliocentrism. What brought him before the Inquisition was a book entitled Dialogue on the Two World Systems, in which three characters discuss the theories of the universe. One of the characters does defend heliocentrism, but it's unclear whether Galileo held that position at the time. In all likelihood, Galileo did side with heliocentrism, but because of the threat of punishment, he remains silent on the matter. It's also important to remember that the best scientists of his day all disagreed with heliocentrism, not for biblical reasons, but for scientific ones. The science of the day didn't support Galileo, and Galileo didn't have the evidence to defend his new claims. It's also difficult to be a martyr when little was done to him besides censure. While the story for many years was that he was tortured and jailed by the Inquisition, the evidence suggests otherwise. During his trial, he was lodged at the Tuscan embassy. After convicted of suspicion of heresy, he was placed under house arrest at the bishop's residence in Siena, a personal friend. After a few months, he was moved back to his own villa near Florence, where he spent his remaining years. With the exception of the few days he was interrogated, June 21st through 24th, 1633, he was housed in luxury. It's not known where he stayed during these days, and it is possible that he was put in a jail cell, but much more likely that he was lodged in the prosecutor's apartment. The likelihood of torture seems even more remote. Court records show that the Pope decreed against torture in his case, and that he was interrogated merely with the threat of torture on June 21st. No record remains of any methods used upon him, a requirement of the inquisitors, and given the fact that he appeared in court on June 22nd, at an advanced age, strongly suggests that he was not maltreated. Contrary to the common myth, Galileo never heroically stood up to the church, nor was he jailed and tortured for his beliefs. He was silenced, yes, forced to give up his teaching and publishing, but he is not a martyr. Which is not insignificant, and the church has since recognized this. In 1992, Pope John Paul II praised Galileo's work and admitted the error of his contemporary theologians and scientists. For a time, their improper evaluation of Aristotle's philosophy and literal interpretation of Scripture clouded their judgment. Both church and scientists were simply wrong in the case of Galileo. We unfairly censured a brilliant scientist, and for that, we must do penance. But notice what we've done here in this video. In unpacking these three situations, we have not exonerated the church from any wrongdoing. Not at all. We have acted harshly along the way. A bishop incited a mob against someone. A man was burned alive for his theological beliefs. Another was put under house arrest for our mistake. This is not great, but it's also not evidence that the church has a vendetta against science. While each of these cases involved scientists, the fact that they were scientists had nothing to do with what happened to them. During Hypatia's time, Augustine was supporting the same philosophy. During the time of Giordano and Galileo, the church was the leading supporter of research in astronomy and was educating thousands of people in its universities in natural philosophy and physics. Throughout our history, the Catholic Church has not only tolerated the sciences, it has kept them alive and allowed them to flourish. We can thank Catholic priest Maureen Marcen for founding the science of acoustics, Blessed Nicholas Stano for the field of geology, Jesuit priest Angelo Secchi, who pioneered the use of spectroscopy to study stars and developed the first systematic classification, Augustinian friar Gregor Mendel for his experiments on plant hybridization, earning him the title Father of Genetics, and Father George Lemaître for his proposition of, wait for it, the Big Bang Theory. You simply can't have martyrs for science if the church has never been inherently against science. Rather, what you have are three people who were the unfortunate victims of powerful, ill-formed men. You have examples of the church overstepping her authority and acting very un-Christ-like. You have individuals in particular times acting on their own accord against the overall tradition of the church. We must atone for our sins we've committed against Hypatia, Bruno, and Galileo, for sure. But calling them what they're not won't help anyone. The church may have a problem with power, but it has never had a problem with science.